But I would probably swap Herbert for this one's gonna blow your mind. Kyler Murray.
Oh, you cannot say everything that you just said about inviting chaos. Kyler Murray's literally a matador the way that he plays the football. Let's get everybody as close as possible to me, and then I'm going to spin out or I'm going to try to throw the ball. Like I am all the way out on Kyler Murray. I am Brent Whitefield. We're 20 minutes into our first episode, and I'm thinking about leaving with a comment like that.
What?
Why are you shaking your head?
You're welcome.
Joseph, how are you, sir?
Brett, my dude, my friend, we've been talking about this for a couple of months, and finally, we push record, and we're here to talk football. I'm excited, man. This podcast captures two things that I'm very passionate about. Of course, football, but through the lens of film and through the lens of analytics, putting it all together, having fun with like one of my best friends in the world. This is amazing. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me, of course.
Yeah, you said it's been in the works for a couple months. I would argue it's been in the works longer than that because we did kind of bat the idea around last offseason as well. And then we've always had this desire to do something together that was football related, right? So I feel like this has been like 10 years in the making, but here we finally are hitting the record button where I'm not a guest on your pod. You're not a guest on my pod. This is our thing together. I couldn't be more excited about that. So why don't we tell people kind of how we know each other? It's been a while, Joe.
Well, one day I get a Twitter DM from @BG Whitefield. And I think we're both in the Charlotte area, and I think you like Blue Moon. Want to get together for a drink. And we did, except for we didn't actually have a Blue Moon. We went and had, I think, just regular lunch. Formed a relationship very quickly. Like we hit it off quick and realized that we have a lot of parallels in our life, not just like in our football interests, but in our own personal stories, and connected very, very quickly. And then you did this really cool thing where you moved away. Like I thought I had like a bro. You know what I mean? I thought I had a guy. Thought I had a friend. And then you're like, nah, dude, I'm going back to Michigan. But you've been amazing at continuing to invest in our relationship through moving away. And look at us now. We're doing a podcast together.
Yeah, it's what I tell people the story of, like, not only did we live in both in the Charlotte area, Joe, we were like within a mile of each other,
right down the street,
which is even crazier. Like, you know, the neighborhood I was living in at the time was across the street from your neighborhood, which is wild. So yeah, good. Long story short, our wives even hit it off. I know, Kristen loves your wife and yada, yada, yada. So here we are 10 years later, kind of still developing this relationship. And now we get to work together. So anyways, moving forward, Joe, this podcast is obviously NFL centric. It's in the title, film and analytics, right? I mean, we're going to be hitting X's and O's, anything you can dream of from a football standpoint, the news, roster construction details. And we're going to be weekly in the offseason, bi-weekly in season. So there's a lot coming your way, guys.
Yeah, dude. Excited to see how it evolves. Obviously we have ideas, but I think as we develop our chemistry together doing podcasts, we've certainly done podcasts together, but like making this our own thing, it's going to evolve. It's going to be fun. And I think we both see the game similarly in some ways. And, we've certainly had our own debates as well. So we get to do that instead of like having hour-long phone conversations all the time. We're going to bring those right to the people here on the First Read podcast.
I love it. All right. Well, we wanted to kind of focus the first pod on some of the biggest news in the NFL this week. And the first segment we're going to do is on Jared Goff, who actually minutes before we hit the record button here, it became official. We got news early in the week. He was signing a 4-year deal, but it became official today, actually, that he signed it looks like, Joe, it's actually a 5-year contract. They're tearing up the old deal. So it's basically a 5-year deal worth $236 million. So they kind of changed that final year in his contract around a little bit. By my math, Joe, it looks like the biggest cap hit in that 5-year span is going to be $55 million. So while I think at first when it was reported it was a little sticker shocky, $55 million at the max, at the pinnacle, is not that bad. Everything else is 50 or less, actually. So initial thoughts on that?
Well, I think initially, it's a good reminder that once again, wait for the contract details to come out, right? Like when contracts are announced, it is all agent driven, right? They want to put it out there that their guy got all the money in the world. And then the reality is the structure of the deal tells a completely different story. So always remember that. I'll probably say that a lot on this podcast. I love the idea that Spot Rack has where they put together the quarterback average salary versus league salary cap at signing and like talked about, okay, what was their contract as a percentage of cap? Because I think you can look at this deal and maybe have some sticker shock. But I think in the reality, it's not about the AAV because it's not apples to apples. You can't compare that Josh Allen signed for $43 million a year going into the 2021 season. That's not the same as this. This is a deal where Jared Goff signs for 20.7% of the average salary versus league salary cap at signing, which is 10th among quarterback contracts right now. And the reality is he is the next good quarterback to get a deal. So there's going to be differences in this deal compared to the ones that have come through in throughout the years, maybe for players that you think are better than Jared Goff. So I guess I got all of that out of the way to say that we can talk about the dynamics of this contract, but like the Lions' decision to continue with Jared Goff for whatever it costs, because your value is what somebody's willing to pay you.
Sure.
That's where I think this makes a lot of sense. Like I am on board with the idea of the Detroit Lions continuing to invest in playing with Jared Goff as their starting quarterback, especially because you feel like ever since he's got there, some of the narratives have been about, well, this is not a long-term solution. They got to draft a quarterback high, Hendon Hooker. Like it's been like, well, let's let him play. And he's done nothing but meet moments and lead this team, this Detroit team, to places, let's be honest, that it really hasn't ever gone. So I have more to say about the Lions and Jared Goff and his status in the league and all of that. But I do support their decision to continue rolling with him as their franchise quarterback.
Yeah, the Goff stuff for me, and I get like a really close look at it, right? Because I live here, in Detroit. The culture that has been developed with him at the helm, these guys, they play their hearts out for Jared Goff. This is such an underrated element of QB play, right? Because QBs are inevitably the face of the franchise. They are the leaders in the locker room. And this team, they didn't want anyone else but Jared Goff. And there's value to that where it's like, well, everything we've built, Campbell gets a lot of credit. Brad Holmes obviously gets a ton of credit too, but Jared Goff's a big part of what this team has done so far. And it's easy to think you can get better at quarterback, but the reality is that is really, really hard to do. It's way easier to get worse at quarterback. And that's without the culture stuff. You add the culture stuff in the mix, dude, what were their options other than Jared Goff? Like they didn't have any. Like let's just be real. There's no other option. So, and I think there's a lot to be discussed too about like maybe Jared Goff's not as bad as some of like maybe the sticker shock that came on Monday and Tuesday wasn't warranted compared to what we see on the field. And we can get into that too. But I love this continued discussion about the Lions and their development.
So what you're saying is that Jared Goff's teammates show up for his birthday party, right? That's an important layer to this. Are you the guy, right? Are you the guy that the team rallies behind? And I think you can look at Detroit as a situation where anybody can look at it and feel like there is culture, there is buy-in. These guys love playing for each other. They love playing for Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell. And of course, your quarterback's your most influential leader. And he aligns perfectly with the vision and the direction of what this football team wants to be. Can I rave a little bit about Jared Goff? Because I'm just really impressed with so many things. Not only that he was looked at as kind of the problem in Los Angeles, and that relationship with Sean McVay got sour. Of course, they go to the Super Bowl and then they lose to the Patriots. And all anyone can talk about coming out of that game is, well, Sean McVay told Jared Goff what to do, and then Bill Belichick showed his cards late and they took away their communication, and Sean McVay made Jared Goff, right? Like that was the conversation. Well, what did the last 2 years in Detroit tell us about who Jared Goff is? And that offense was awesome last year. Awesome. Top 5 in scoring, top 5 in yards per rush, top 5 in yards per pass. Like in any way that you want to measure offense, Detroit was awesome. And this is going to feel like I'm going to extend criticism, and I really don't mean it to be that way. But if you look at that team on paper going into the season, you had Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's awesome, right? He's stud player. And then you had like a rookie tight end in Sam Laporta that wasn't a first-round pick. You had David Montgomery at running back, who was like not brought back in Chicago. Jahmyr Gibbs, a rookie. You kind of thought, all right, can some of these interior offensive linemen grow? Can we stay healthy on the offensive line? What else do we have at receiver? This was a top 5 offense in the league with that as what you're looking at going into the season. I think that Ben Johnson and Jared Goff have elevated these players that are around them. I'm not going to sit here and say that I think that Jared Goff is a bona fide truck as a, the trucks and trailers. Like, I'm not going to say he's absolutely a truck.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I'll stop short of that. But I think you can look at this situation and feel like he's been every bit as responsible for where this team is going as any one thing that you want to single out about the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, let me throw some data in the mix too to back up your point. Jared Goff via the FantasyPoints data suite. You can go to data.fantasypoints.com and check out all this data for yourself with a simple subscription. Jared Goff, 5th in adjusted completion percentage last year. Over the last 2 years, he ranks 3rd, 77.6% last year, 4th in accurate ball rate. And that accurate ball rate isn't that's not catchable targets. That's the highest bucket of accuracy that we chart here at Fantasy Points Data. That's like ball was on the money, maximized the result of the play, whether he beat coverage or maximized that yak. 4th in accurate ball rate. That's top 5 in 2 primo statistics right now. Top 10 in hero throw rate, meaning those super difficult, between defenders, tight window throws. He's ranking top 10 in that. Also top 10 in turnover-worthy throw rate. So he doesn't turn the ball over a lot, makes all the throws you want. He's super accurate with it. And then here's my favorite stat. Clean pocket passing. Clean pocket passing is by far the stickiest metric we have for quarterback play. If you want to project QB play in the future, look at clean pocket passing. Jared Goff had the highest passer rating from a clean pocket last year. He was number 2 the year before that. 4 out of the last 6 years he's been a starter. So going back to his time at LA, he has ranked top 7 in EPA per dropback, which EPA is more of a team stat. But point being, like, this dude has been at the helm of some of the most effective passing games for the last, almost decade. It's ridiculous. And the amount of shade I feel like he takes comparatively is kind of crazy. I get he had a couple bad years. His last year in LA, first year in Detroit weren't great. But other than that, his career has been pretty awesome. He's more accomplished than guys like Dak Prescott, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow from a playoff win standpoint. He actually has more combined playoff wins than Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson. Who is the other one? And Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott, Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert. Jared Goff has more playoff wins combined than those 3 guys. I mean, I don't know what else the guy has to do to prove his worth. It feels like this contract was well-deserved to me.
People forget this was the number 1 pick in the draft.
Right.
Like, we're not talking about a random quarterback that's been put in unique situations and elevated by everything around him. This is a number 1 overall pick. And obviously things were so bad in 2016, that first year in, it was Los Angeles with Jeff Fisher and all of that. And I think it's hard, maybe even for it being that long ago, for some people to put that out of their minds. And then, okay, well, Sean McVay comes and everything's better, but then things kind of regress a little bit towards the end, and we didn't love him the first year in Detroit. But the good has far outweighed the bad with Jared Goff, and I don't think you can tell the story of why the Detroit Lions were 12-5 and in the NFC Championship and division winners without realizing that their quarterback had a heck of a lot to do with it.
Agreed. Before we transition to our next topic, I do want to hit a couple more points, broader points with Goff, comparative to the other QBs. Where, like, if you had to draft out the QBs, Joe, and I might be putting you on the spot a little bit, where would you think Goff comes off the board?
Well, I think it's probably easier for me to identify like which quarterbacks I would definitely pick over Jared Goff.
Yeah, do that.
So I will do that for you. I would definitely take Josh Allen.
Yep.
Are we talking about for one season?
Like a blend. Let's say next 3 years. Goff's 29. He's still a young man, but he's not Trevor Lawrence at 20.
Well, I said that to say, like, would I rather have Aaron Rodgers, right? Like,
yeah.
So no, so Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, maybe Lamar Jackson. I'd take CJ Stroud.
Ooh,
Yeah. I'm into CJ Stroud.
me too, but I'll hit the Stroud point in a sec.
Mahomes, Herbert.
Well, oh, okay, Herbert.
Yeah, dude, I love Herbert.
Okay.
I love Herbert. Nobody in the NFC East, I don't think.
No Jalen Hurts?
No.
Okay.
No.
He would be the one guy I'd consider there, but I think you're probably right. I think I'd probably go Goff.
I mean, I really liked what I saw from Jordan Love, but I'd like to see a bigger sample size before I say that for sure.
10 games of good play.
Yeah.
Hard to.
I don't know about Kirk at his age coming off of an Achilles.
Purdy?
No.
Trevor Lawrence? Not for me.
No. Stafford? That's interesting. But like he's 39 with all the injuries in the world.
I don't think he's quite 39, right? 36, maybe 35.
I don't know. I
Old.
feel like he's been 35 for 5 years.
Right, old with a messed up back
Right.
and all kinds of issues.
Not Kyler for me. I don't know. So like 7th?
Yeah, that
Like spitballing 7th?
7th was my number. I think we have a couple. Like I wouldn't have Herbert or Stroud. I don't think in there. Stroud's close, but what's funny, my comp for Stroud coming out was Jared Goff, so that's really ironic, actually. That
Oh,
I'm hung
you
up
know what?
on
I
him.
like that a lot. What's your
Yeah.
problem with Herbert? What's the deal there?
I think
You
he's
don't
a
want-
coach killer.
Oh,
He's the new Matthew Stafford. Trevor Lawrence
Really?
is following in those footsteps too. He just, for as talented as he is, the production on the field just not there. And I know he's had some wonky, Staley was not a great head coach, but he still had decent play callers, decent weapons around him, good offensive line, pretty good defense. There was really no excuse for the way he played. His tendencies as a passer invites chaos into his life, or just he turns into a check down merchant. There's no in between for him. It's really strange. I'm not really sure what it is. Now he's still young. He could definitely develop. He has all the raw, like from a tools standpoint, I would take him over Goff in a heartbeat. But from actually playing the quarterback position, I think Goff is better right now than Justin Herbert is.
So you would swap out Stroud and Herbert, and then you would add who to get yourself back to 7?
Stroud, I'm not 100% on. That one's tough for me because Stroud is like a younger Jared Goff.
Here's a Stroud take for you. I think he got away. Like he was awesome last year for sure. That dude got away with some crap too. I don't think like. I think in the NFL, when you're a young quarterback, you spend a lot of time trying to figure out what you can and cannot get away with. And I worry that Stroud was on the good but wrong side of that a little bit too much, and I think he's going to have to evolve a little bit. But the big moments were too frequent for me to ignore it.
Yeah, Stroud. So in a lot of our advanced data over at FantasyPoints Data Suite, like he didn't actually rank that high in like accurate ball rate, catchable ball rate, adjusting. Like he struggled in a lot of those. The one thing I will say is he was like fifth in passer rating from a clean pocket. So I've already touted that as the stat for predicting future success. So I do. So I'll keep Stroud ahead of Goff because the age. But I would probably swap Herbert for this one's gonna blow your mind. Kyler Murray.
Oh, you cannot say everything that you just said about inviting chaos. Kyler Murray's literally a matador the way that he plays the football. Let's get everybody as close as possible to me, and then I'm going to spin out or I'm going to try to throw the ball. Like I am all the way out on Kyler Murray. I am Brett Whitefield. We're 20 minutes into our first episode, and I'm thinking about leaving with a comment like that.
So Kyler, I mean, Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, but has Kyler had a fair shake so far? He's had a boob for an offensive coach in Cliff Kingsbury. He has had absolutely no weapons. He had a washed DeAndre Hopkins, injured Hollywood Brown, and really bad offensive line play. I think when you see the raw, like if we like Herbert, we have to like Kyler because the raw tools with Kyler are just as good, if not better.
What?
The legs, so he's going to be a better runner, going to be able to give you a high floor because of the running ability. The arm is just as good as Herbert's, is it not?
Yeah, I think arm talent is comparable. You don't see the limitations with Kyler Murray and how he plays and like what he can't see and like you think that Kyler Murray does at any level of consistency does the smart right thing with the football?
He is the archetype of quarterback that I hate. He's the reason I had Caleb Williams as my QB2 and not QB1. He's the reason I hated Justin Fields coming out. Yeah. No, you're right. Yes. All of those things about Kyler drive me nuts. I just think there's so much talent in his body. I just want him to see a good situation. I love that they drafted Marvin Harrison Jr. because it's like finally he's going to have a dog to throw the ball to. It's
like Christian Kirk and DeAndre Hopkins weren't like terrible players.
Yeah, Kirk Kirk really didn't break out though till he was in.
You had to get away from Kyler to unlock his potential.
Okay,
You think that
sure.
Kyler is not going to work with a route runner in the slot like Kirk?
Yeah, so Kyler had like 10 games of healthy D-Hop, by the way. D-Hop was basically a mess every game after that. So, yeah, I
Well,
mean,
are you
you make
excited?
good
Like,
points.
Marvin Harrison Jr. But what else does that team have? Trey McBride. The rest
Mc
of those receivers are total question marks. The
I
thing
think
about Arizona is they can run the ball. That's what I like about them.
yeah, their run game is disgusting. A lot of that's
Right.
Kyler Murray though, Joe. Like he elevates the floor of that run game quite a bit. Yeah, I mean, you're probably talking me off the ledge here with Kyler. I've always been a fan of his. You know that. Like I called him as the first overall pick in January the year he was coming out when everyone thought he was still playing baseball.
Yeah.
So, I just think
Clinging to
there's
your priors, I see.
yeah, clinging to my priors. There's so much talent though. I want somebody to be able to get it out. You could say the same thing about Herbert though. So I probably unfairly crushed Herbert and then propped up Kyler for all the same things.
All right, so we're thinking around 7. We
7.
think he's a top 25% of the league quarterback.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when it's your time to get paid, that's what happens. You get paid. Last thing real quick, fantasy implications. I think this not much to say here other than what? Amon-Ra still trending up, Laporta still great, Gibbs still great. I love that the stability, from a fantasy standpoint, the stability you're going to get with Goff now under contract, Amon-Ra under contract. Everyone still should be good, should be a great offense.
What I think takes this to the moon is if they get another receiver somehow. Like I just kind of wonder, like, is Jameson Williams gonna be that guy?
Are you not a JMO guy?
Yeah, I know. I love him. I love him so much. Like I had a very high grade on him, but what have I seen from him to this point in the NFL that makes me feel confident going into his 3rd season that he's going to be that dude?
Yeah, no, that's completely fair. I was talking about this with Christopher Wecht, our projections guy, because he just finished the season-long projections, and he was having a really tough time with where to put JMO on that. Because it's like we lost a lot of targets with Josh Reynolds, obviously, so like those have to go somewhere. Probably not going to go to DPJ because I don't think he's there. Is JMO really going to take that big of a leap, though, where his target share is getting up into the 20%? I'm not sure he's ready for that, but you have to like the way he finished the year, though, Joe. Like he looked... he earned Goff's trust. The thing that stood out to me is they were getting him involved in the short part of the field. Like, and I'm not talking screens and drags. I'm talking like, hey, we're going to trust you on a timing pattern, like a slant or a hitch or a comeback. And he was effective on those routes. So I think him earning Goff's trust on those more precise routes that he needs to run, not just the vertical linear stuff, I think is big for his development. I mean, I personally believe he will step into that wide receiver 2 role pretty good this year. But I get why people would be skeptical of that for sure.
Yeah, I just want to see some proof of concept in a bigger sample size. I recognize the talent. He was like my wide receiver 1 by a ton. I loved him, big playability. And I thought he was a lot more than just a guy that ran fast down the field and caught the football. I thought there was a lot to his game. Injuries obviously gets in the way of that, and you trying to develop chemistry and time on task and find your role in an offense. I think that's hard to do when you face the injuries and the issues that he had in his first couple of seasons. But if he can be that dude, I mean, Lions to the moon.